You voted, a lot more didn't, and now parties are scrambling to constitute governing power. Welcome to the final edition of Elections 360 Degrees with me, Alvin Simpier, as we review the local government elections and its results. Oh, and later on, how did Batung party fare? The leader joins me in studio later on. It was a short campaign season for parties, independent candidates and the Electoral Commission to prepare for the local government elections. With the poll wrapped up, a huge task lies ahead with parties jostling for power in the form of coalition governments. Our international news editor, Sophie Mukwena, spoke to several parties about their performances and what the future holds for them, but a lot of the lighter moments as well at the National Results Operations Centre.
Did you anticipate somewhere, somehow, you'll have to be a leader?
You know what, Sophie, growing up in Haramutz, in a village called Haramutz, I lost my father at the age of 2. My grandfather, I meant everything to him. He used to actually give me some wisdoms of wanting me to really succeed in life. Actually, on the day when I was born, 29th of August 1959, the whole village knew that I was born, and he called me Hyman. Hyman was not my official name because I actually later changed to Herman. If you go to Haramutsi today, everyone knows me as Hyman, because this Hyman was just too much on me, because I used to feel that my grandfather his expectations of me were unfair, because he insisted that I must not really fail in life. I must always be an individual, and also taught me something about integrity. That please, the only thing that you have in life, the basic asset, is your integrity. And that's how I grew up. And I ended up saying when I was 22, I said, P.W. Potter, you're not going to determine my destiny. I don't want to live like everybody else. I'm going to go into business so that I can take charge of my life. But before, obviously, starting business, I wanted to stabilize my life. I got married. I got married at the age of 2. Got married my wife, Connie, who you know. She was 20. In a few months' time, in March, we'll be married for 40 years. And I can tell you, Connie played such a key role.
I know her. I remember her very well when we were still together in that industry.
Yes,
and I being a stylist,
That's right, yes. And right now she's now taken over the responsibility with my daughter to run our family businesses. But she plays such a key role in really protecting me, to make sure that...
Very humble woman, I must say.
Kept me in line, and I really appreciate that. I'm indebted to her. And my mother and my sisters who brought me up, because I was brought up in a child-hated household with my mother working as a domestic worker in Johannesburg. So yes, accidentally got into politics because I was concerned about the direction the country was taking. And here is it, I'm a full-time politician committed in saving South Africa.
And here you are at the Electoral Results Centre, people asking you questions and becoming a newsmaker of the day. And finally, where to from here? Have you reached agreements with other parties in different areas or parts of the country where you contested on the issues of coalitions?
Look, when we launched Action SA on the 29th of August 2020 last year, we made a commitment that what we want to do is to use our democratic structures to remove and unseat the ANC, because we realize with the ANC and a prosperous South Africa cannot coexist in one space. So that was our commitment. And here is it, in 6 municipalities, we've drastically reduced the ANC under 50%. So ANC can't run any of the 6 municipalities on their own. They have to go into coalition with someone else. Big achievement for us. Now, I have to now get involved in the preparations for 2024. But in the meantime, if any other political party outside the ANC wants to come and talk to us, we are happy to talk.
From business to a leader in South Africa and working towards 2024. Do you think in 2024 you stand a chance, perhaps in provinces and national?
In fact, I think honestly and truly, Sophie, if you look at what happened with this 2021 local government elections, how difficult it was. I mean, IEC really made life difficult for us throughout, really, you know. And we started this political party under right in the midst of the pandemic. And look at what we've achieved. Honestly, for me, 2024 is going to be a walkover, but not a walkover that we are going to take for granted. That's why you will see hard work.
As you've done before in the industry, in the business industry.
Absolutely. I would really want, right at the moment we've got official representation in 3 provinces. Gauteng with John Moody, Makosi Khoza in KZN, and Feki Mento in Western Cape. So I need to fill 6 provincial chairpersons on a full-time basis, and I want to achieve that commitment by end of March next year at the latest, because we need to hit the ground running so that we prepare for 2024. And then 2024, we want to see the ANC not under 50%, we want to see them under 30%.
Ntate Mashaba, when I spoke to you yesterday, you spoke about, in terms of your terms, if you were to go to a coalition with your parties that you'd want to go or you can be available to. You spoke about with EFF you are comfortable
at local government.
At local government because you still want to serve ordinary people.
You know, local government is about having the budget and then you decide where to allocate it. So if EFF and I agree that we must go and give people of Alexander toilets,
That's what you've been doing?
Yes, I'm not going to complain about that. But I'm not going to really go into politics to really be a mayor of grass cutting in the suburbs. I mean, that's, you know.
A mayor of grass cut. You're going back to black like me and focus the poor.
No, give people the dignity, you know, and that's, our people have been failed by 400 years of apartheid, 70 years of apartheid government, 27 years of ANC. We have to liberate our people, and the only way you can liberate them is to give them the dignity. And that's anyone who does not believe in giving black people the dignity, and all South Africans, not just black, because if you look at our election result, something that we can proudly tell you, we're the only political party at our leadership level, at our voters level. Look at our performance in Sandton, in Morningside, in Soweto, in Alexander, all of them.
Inclusivity.
You know, we're a political party that doesn't just talk, we practice. Because my grandfather told me one thing very important. He says, my son, what you do, listen to people, but believe what they do than what they say.
Ntate Mashaba, you know, this brings me to one thing as a journalist that I've observed. As a child who grew up in the countryside, really a child from the previously disadvantaged background and having to work very hard, I don't understand why political parties or leaders, even around the world, don't understand that when you have majority being poor and disadvantaged, you are just creating an unequal society, and it will lead to corruption, it will lead to crime, and there's no way the world will be at peace. Why people can't get that you start with those who don't have?
You know, I wrote a book a few years ago called The Capitalist Crusader, and I challenge any South African to really look at the kind of capitalist system that are modeled, because that's the one that I've practically lived for the last almost 40 years. We as a family, we've been really lucky. When I decided to go in business, we were really fortunate that we succeeded, but we've always given back. Because you know what, Sophia, I can only have 3 meals a day. That's all I can have. I cannot afford to really go and play golf when the people don't have toilets and say, I'm a billionaire, I'm a millionaire. No, it doesn't really work like that. Financially, when I took this decision, my family and I could afford to go and leave this country and say it's going to collapse. But I'm a God-fearing person. I said to Connie and my family, I said, guys, if I don't do this job, God will punish us. And my conscience said, let me do it. And I'm so grateful to Connie and my family to say, if that's what you want to do, it's a tough job. People are going to humiliate you. They're going to abuse you. But I said, you know what? I don't care. In fact, when people obviously call me names, that's when actually they make me strong.
On a parting shot, you may not be aware, you sponsored Sebokeng College of Education on empowerment programs. voter education pre-1994, peace initiatives, and with the ICANN program, Dr. Molapo, David Molapo, and Abna Mariri.
In the 1994 elections, we spent in excess of 10 million rands to give it to companies that were running voter education because we wanted
Like
our
our
people.
college.
Because we wanted people to really be knowledgeable about the importance of voting. So it's not something that I started today. I can tell you, on Sunday, I was in Dobsonville. One guy took me to a salon, our candidate to a salon. He says, there's someone who wants to see you. I went there, and this guy, when I got there, he says, Mr. Mashaba, but we'll talk one day. I'm the man today because of you. But he didn't, and I asked him, what have I done? He says, I'll tell you one day. And then obviously, as we left his place, he said, you know why that guy wanted to see you? Back in the mid-90s, I visited Krugersdorp prison. And where the situation I found, and one of the prisoners actually asked me to if I can help them so that when they leave prison they can be hairdressers. I then set up, out of our own money, set up a full-fledged training the center where we send people to go and train those guys to be hairdressers so that when they leave prison they can be successful in their lives. And I believe it's been out for 10 years, run one of the most very successful, I believe it's the busiest salon in Dobsonville. Those are things that you touched lives of people. But I've been touched, Sophie, by people like you, by, Cisco Nidipuko in Everton.
Yes.
I've been touched by South Africans, and no one is going to take that away from me because that is me. You can call me whatever you want, but ultimately it's me, and no one is going to change Herman Mashama.
Two very controversial South Africans from Bloemfontein prison and business, now politics. Guys, ke le rata mihlolo tje. Le kana kae di politiki, tronko politiki di kopana.
No, don't call it now. What about King? I get him mo South Africa. My politicians bad tronko. So rural kale tronko class so rural ketile. Ke na ka bona so bone ba toya rural tswara already.
Kenny, what's happening?
What's modimo ha o file tsela o tshwanetse o etsamaye so rona re di excon ba re bitsa jwalo akere jwale bona ke di incon rona re ya ko union buildings bona ba ya Grootvlei
Mara hey, with that kind of a background there can be a mistrust. How do you deal with that?
Mistrust mo ba khorung e bone ba le mistrust how do mo modimo tla tseba free God can change her life. Bona mistrust ya batho ba bangata ba hlanye ba re votetseng 42 seats so far and are so good.
ha gona mistrust that next wa bona mewaka ke tsamaile ka ya Bushbuckridge ke tsamaile ka ya Nongoma ke tsamaile ka ya Lesukisiki ke batlana le mollo ya loile ma Afrika borwa ka hore ba voutele mokgatlo o e re tswang ho ona o tweng ke ANC hobaneng o tletse ka mashodu a yang tronkong jwala ha ona hore batho ba ke se re tshepe rona re improveile hore re isa bana dikolong re fepa bana re le ra ba raja di sushi ra ba ma Japan re batla ho ba bontsha hore
Le fetohile.
ba rona re fetohile ibile ha re utswe tšhelete ha re so etse di tender ke ka ho batho ba re tshepang ba re voutela
Ha re fepi politiki re fepa
politiki ibile hape rona ha re sa kgatla ke bo ausi re itsamaela le basadi ba rona re qetile jwale bana bona
What are you going to do in areas where you have influence?
We are going to change the people's lives. We are going, politics for us is not a job. Like these people have no other job. Politics for us is a calling. So we are going to change people's lives. We are not dependent on a position in politics. I, for one, and our DP, he doesn't have a position. He's on no list. We are not fighting to be in parliament. We just want to see people's lives being better.
We are business people who are community activists.
Mr. Mackenzie, I'm an international news editor and I cover Africa. I believe in Pan-Africanism and Africans telling their own story, but this issue of you being associated with xenophobia, can you clarify that to Africans? Because sometimes, when people are asking you questions, maybe they are not asking you questions that really explain your policy on this issue of illegal immigrants and perhaps people who are in the country not legal. Can you clarify this? Because it will be a sad day if Africans can be xenophobic.
Well, you know what? We are not xenophobic. We are law-abiding. I'm an international business person. I've got businesses in the rest of the continent. You cannot go in a country and take just jobs that's meant and local people don't have jobs. We are not saying that foreigners that come here legally. Go to any restaurant. I bet anybody to order food now, you're going to get a foreigner delivering the food. I bet anybody now to say go and call an Uber. Those are simple jobs that can be done. They don't need a degree. Our people don't have jobs. I started a business in Dubai and in China, and I was told categorically by both governments, you cannot use this area. There's a special economic zone. You must go there. This best area is reserved for our people. We are not saying illegal. We are not saying foreigners must go. We are saying what the law is saying. Illegal foreigners must go. They are a burden. You go to the hospitals, they are full there. They are a burden on the health system that is not budgeted for them. You can't go to, I was 2 days late in Zambia on my passport. I had to pay a fine. So that's the law. I wasn't angry because I was 2 days late. Here foreigners come, they do what they like here. They got shops in every street. They make their own grand pass. They've taken over Sunnyside. When we take over as the PA, and it seems like Joburg, we're going to be the kingmaker. We take over at 9 o'clock, 9:30. All these illegal foreigners, all of them, they're going home. From Sunnyside, Yeovil thing, they're going home. You must show your papers. They are going home. All these illegal foreigners.
But
Hello,
remember...
Helen. I also want to see Helen's passport. Helen, I want to see Helen's passport. We're not only talking about black foreigners.
He says he wants to see your passport because all immigrants...
I've got my South African ID here if he wants to see my South African ID.
You see? Yeah, that's what we're asking for.
No, I see.
Helen can show her ID. Now you come with a person here that does what we're not against only Africans. The Serbians that are here that shooting each other, they must also go. The Italians that are here committing crime, they must also go. We don't care about this. The fact remains black people don't have jobs, the foreigners take all the jobs. You people that stays in big houses, you talk about Pan-Africanism, but you've got security by your gate, but you say the borders must be open.
I don't have security at
but
my
nobody
gate.
loves you. You don't need security. You are right to go Bloemfontein.
Mr. Lekota, the last time you were eating your head here, it looks like you're going to eat your head again.
No, I'm not going to eat my head again. I didn't promise to eat my head this time.
In terms of performance, Cope is struggling.
Yeah, we are struggling. We don't have, we didn't have as much money as what we should have had and so on to run a big campaign. And in fact, this campaign was run quite peculiarly because it was all of these political parties. They were running with their national leaders from province to province. At some point, I wasn't sure whether...
the national election.
I wasn't sure whether Mr. Ramaphosa, the president, is not a mayoral candidate for one of the cities of the country because he was everywhere.
Maybe anticipating that one day he'll be a mayor.
Yes. It may well be so, yeah.
Going forward, where to from here, South Africa? South Africans have spoken, coalitions, work together.
Yes. No, I think there's going to be a lot of soul searching. I think very many people in the townships, when they look at their conditions, they realize that they have been catching it with the tail because nobody can be proud of the conditions in which the people find themselves, really. Sewage everywhere. Schools are gone. Houses that were promised in the Freedom Charter, nothing is there, really. Now people must ask themselves, hey man, what do we do to correct this situation? Because we cannot live like this forever. I mean, somebody was saying to me the other time, with this kind of sewage, I think I was in Togos, with this kind of sewage people living around, isn't it maybe even this coronavirus comes from this thing and so on? Because people cannot believe that they can live in conditions like that. So yes, there's going to be a lot of soul searching.
The end of the campaign, and now parties are engaged in discussions because many municipalities will be formed only when parties agree to form coalition government. Let me try my luck here. Guys, what's happening here?
We're talking about land. We want land.
Land?
Yeah, we've got common policy.
How was the campaign? How was the campaign?
No, the campaign was quite good. You can see we are all gelling. There's no challenge.
It was tough.
Yeah, it was too. it was a very short campaigning period.
But very tough.
Yeah, hectic. But
so now you're preparing for 2024.
No, yeah, but to also go and give our people services, what we promised them. We made commitments in
and
this.
And the coalition talks as well.
We'll find each other. We'll find each other.
We'll find each other.
Yes.
How was the campaign?
No, it was exciting. We were all over speaking to our people, getting to experience the living conditions of our people at first hand. They are terrible. And I think that's what we should take out of this election and go and fix our country. So it should be about fixing South Africa more than anything else.
Do you still have the dance moves?
Which dance moves? I can't dance. You know I can't dance to save my life.
But I saw, we saw you.
No, then there are people. Then they count for me. Then I know when they say 3, I kick there.
Did I count for you and Deputy
music?
Well, also there, the former leaders of the ANC Youth League. So the question that we're asking you this evening is, which political party do you think will pull more parties into their coalitions? As you know, that the coalitions talks are currently the biggest debates that's currently taking place. All you have to do is tweet us your comment. You can post that on Twitter using the hashtag elections360. That is elections360. Now, to speak to us more about these coalition talks, we are now joined by Sophie Mukwena to give us more about what's happening behind the scenes as political parties begin on these coalitions. So we've also seen a record number of hung municipalities, but this is also coming from a record low of voter turnout. Good evening.
Good evening, Aldrin. Yes, indeed. The political parties, the message was clear from South Africans that they want leaders in this country to work together to ensure that they have services, but secondly, to address the challenges facing the country, poverty, unemployment, electricity, roads, and many other issues, including education and everything. And therefore, the message is clear to leaders of different political parties. South Africans have told you to go back, work together, and make South Africa a better country, and indeed, by extension, the continent, and of course, South Africa contributing to make this world a better place for all.
Well, 70 hung municipalities, and with the city of Cape Town, for instance, when the Democratic Alliance came in through a coalition, and then after that managed to hold on to the city of Cape Town. But the difference is, with 2016, we saw how political parties struggled, the Democratic Alliance as well, including the ANC here in the city of Johannesburg. What do you think is different this time around, if anything, and what lessons should they be taking from what happened in 2016?
Well, clearly South Africans have finally decided that we've given you enough time to work towards making this country a better place, deal with racism, deal with challenges such as unemployment and poverty. And now we're taking into our own hands the destiny of this country. And therefore you will do as we South Africans tell you to do. And therefore it speaks to the fact that the main parties, that is the ANC, lost votes because of the challenges the party itself is facing. Corruption, many people lost jobs, many people are complaining about services and electricity, and there was no decisive leadership to address those challenges. The DA, on the other hand, you cannot be a pressure group. DA is currently becoming a pressure group for a particular constituency. South Africans are saying we are tired of politics of regionalism and pressure groups. We want a united South Africa.
Well, and then, of course, the Democratic Alliance also pushing for the Premier to have the powers to call for a referendum. But let's speak about the 4 political parties that are currently in negotiations and talks around coalitions. What do we know so far?
Well, what I do know is that the ANC is expected, or the meeting has started with the delegation of the EFF to look at the possibility of working together, forming a coalition government where it is possible. And I think in terms of policies, for EFF and ANC, it's a simple one. But of course, the issues of egos and perhaps the previous experience and the baggage of the past might kick in. But the reality is they are not that far apart. But when you take EFF and the DA, oh well, it's not going to work.
But what about the DA and the ANC, for instance? Some people say because the one is positioned as a centre-right and the other one positioned at the centre-left, that they are much closer.
Well, DA is not centre-right. Yeah, it might be. But the policies of the DA are very unpredictable, no matter what they say. Because in terms of interest of the black majority, there are issues that are not negotiable. And the DA is having challenges with those issues. And therefore, it becomes a problem. But it is not something that can't be achieved. Because you know that the DA has walked this road before with Martinus van Schalkwyk and Tony Leon, and of course with the IFP, with the ANC in some small municipalities. Therefore, they do have experience. The same will apply to the ANC. So you have these 2 parties with experience. But with the EFF, it was a question of observation. Yes, 2016, making a contribution, but not being part of the coalition. And I think now they want to be part of that, because the reality is we are going Scandinavian way, Sweden, even Belgium and Germany with the coalition governments. And therefore, as a country, at the leadership level, and us ordinary South Africans, we must accept that it is not going to be business as usual.
Thank you so much for your time, Sophie Mokoena there. We'll continue the conversation around coalition parties, coalition governments. We'll be joined by Professor Jolene Steyn-Kotter, who will be joining us just after this, and also getting a sense of whether you believe at all that political parties going into a coalition is, by some measure, a level of betrayal to the voter.
Dear Mother Earth, I am a
Well, with a record high number of hung municipalities following the local government elections, what are some of the crucial aspects in negotiations? And do you as a voter feel any sense of betrayal at all when a party you voted for goes into a coalition with a party that you rejected through your vote? Joining us now to have this conversation is Professor Jolene Steyn-Kotter from the Human Sciences Research Council. Professor, good evening. Thank you so much for making time for us. I'd like to start the conversation off here first, is that when you listen to analysts and people speaking about the outcomes of these elections, and specifically when it comes to the hung municipalities, they say that voters have decided for political parties to work together in these coalitions. But when a voter goes out to vote, I don't necessarily think that they go out with the intention of, I'm voting for this political party to be in a hung municipality, is it?
Good evening, and thank you very much for inviting me to your show. As I've said before in some of my previous commentary as well, I do feel in this particular electoral campaign, and I have said it during the campaigning as well, a critical conversation for me that was largely missing from most political parties is exactly that question. We realize, and the lessons learned from the 2016 local government elections, especially in your metropolitan areas, in the event that we do not get an outright majority, who are we going to collaborate with? What would be our developmental priorities, and how that vote proverbially will be shared amongst the political parties? Those conversations for me needed to happen not just amongst political parties themselves, but with the electorate as well, in the interest of openness and transparency.
Yeah, because what we've seen now, for instance, Action SA is saying that they will run a poll and hear from their constituents which way they should go. But that's something that could have been done before. But then what we saw during the campaigning as well is when you do ask political parties about what sort of conversations are happening when it comes to coalition governments, they say that we are not in this run to be part of a hung municipality, but we are in this and we are running to become the majority party. Is there a need for a level of sophistication that says that this is the trajectory that is now taking place in the country and therefore political parties should respond to that?
Well, yeah, and I also do think, that when we look at the past electoral campaigns and the way political parties almost did their campaigning, did their politics and engaged with one another, it was very much around that antagonistic, type of engagement where my political opponent is my enemy, so to speak. And I think that is also a key reason why we saw some of the most spectacular failures in coalition governments from the 2016 to the current 2021 period. What we do need, I think, is almost a more mature approach to how we engage politics to say, you know what, ideologically we may be different. We may have different policy positions, but we do need to consider how we are going to collectively work together for the public good, and not necessarily advance only our political agendas.
Mm-hmm. Then what about the voter themselves? And I was saying earlier on that the voter goes to the voting booth with the intention of voting for a specific political party, perhaps with the hope that the party would win. However, though, that's a vote of confidence in the party in saying the message that the party has had is something that they can align themselves with. Is it fair to say that some voters could feel a sense of betrayal when the party that they voted for gets into a coalition government with a party that they rejected?
Well, one could say that there may possibly be such a sense, but we will only be able to figure that out once we conduct a little bit of, post-electoral research and start engaging on those specific questions. And again, for me, I think, as I had said previously, in the interest of openness and transparency, given the lessons learned of 2016, these conversations really needed to happen. And I'm starting to wonder to what extent political parties had learned that lesson. For the DA, I think it will be particularly difficult because we noted in its electoral campaign, for example, there was quite a strong focus on give us an outright majority, basically telling the voter that a vote for a smaller party is a wasted vote, which is not a new campaign that they have run. We have seen that in the 2011 local government elections, for example. And I think given that narrative, it then becomes very difficult for the DA, for example, to really bring smaller parties on board and say that we are going to work as equal partners on this particular developmental agenda.
Yeah. And the other aspect around, for instance, negotiations that we're taking place now, the EFF has sent out a statement and they've said that these are some of our these are some of the positions that we're taking and non-negotiables, that this is what we want when we get into a coalition talk with any political party. And some of those policies, of course, are policies that are at the national level. But what do you think of almost the sense that parties like the EFF imposing some of their manifestos on a political party that would come to them and say, let's have a negotiation, almost like, if you think about it, with the floor crossing, for instance, that said that I voted for this particular political party and this person has been elected by the political party to stand for us in parliament, but then that person then defecting, almost betraying again the voter.
For me, that is a very, very critical question. And, I think when we start looking at the local government election or at the local level, many of these, coalition agreements are almost being hashed out at that national level. And I don't think that national leaders would have very much knowledge of the little nuances and kind of the key issues that differ from hung council to hung council to hung council. So ideally, what I would have liked to see is parties at a local level get together have a discussion, see how they can collaborate and cooperate, and then take those proposals to the national leadership, as opposed to the national leadership almost what the coalition agreements would be.
And then the final one is looking at the results of the local government elections, and now speaking about Cape Town, for instance, that back in 2016, the Democratic Alliance achieving 66.1%, but that number dwindling to 58.22% now in these elections. And then on the other end as well, Ekurhuleni in 2016 at 48.64%, and now in 2021 at 38.19%. So these are two municipalities, or two metros at least, that received clean audits. However, though, the sense that I'm getting here, and I don't know if you agree with this, that clean audits does not necessarily mean that the lives and the livelihoods of people have been improved, and therefore being a marker that's used around whether or not the lives of people have been improved outside of clean governance.
Well, I mean, clean governance, of course, is one area of what the Auditor General focuses on. And I do think a key criticism leveled against local governments is that these audits almost become a tick box exercise. We went out and we had a IDP engagement, we can tick that box. We had a public participation process, we can tick that box. It is that quality of engagement, I think, that one also largely needs to pay attention to. And for me, this is where your smaller parties, as well as your independent candidates that may have taken certain wards, become particularly important, because they can give voice to issues that your bigger parties may actually miss, that have a direct impact on the human dignity and the quality of life of the ordinary citizen in specific areas.
Mm-hmm. Do you think that there is space to create some sort of framework that says that once we deal with governance and clean governance, we should also then focus on service delivery, in that, sure, we have the receipt that says that the money has been spent on this, but what has the impact of that money being spent on that community have been?
No, definitely. But I also do think we need to focus on that quality of key stakeholder engagement. So, for example, when whether it's a coalition or an outright majority, you do your public engagement and your public participatory processes, that people are actually able to see a link between what their wants and needs are and how that directly translates into the developmental plans. And I think this is where it's going to become particularly difficult in that coalition situation that is now being hashed out at a national level, for people to be able to see their input into what the developmental trajectories within their own communities are going to be.
Dr. Jolene, thank you so much for your time. That is Professor Jolene Steyn-Kotze there from the Human Sciences Research Council. Really appreciate your time. Let's look at some of your responses on social media using the hashtag elections360degrees to the question that we're asking this evening. This one coming from Graham van den Mark, who says that if I was John Steenhuisen and the ANC wants you as a coalition partner, the following must happen. 1, remove race-based BBEE laws. 2, remove all labor law red tape. 3, reduce corporate income tax to at least 22%. This will be lowered to 27% next year, though, and stop land expropriation. And this one from Thibaut Nochi saying that Gayton and Herman sing the same tune. Should those two work together, I strongly believe that they will clean the city of Johannesburg. And this one from Pasha says that it's tough for them in Joburg and Tshwane. If the ANC and EFF had the same numbers from 2016, it would work. They should probably rerun these two metros. It will be unstable in the current format. That will be an interesting one to see whether any of the hung municipalities will be able to constitute a government, and if they don't, whether there is that possibility of a rerun of the elections. And we'll continue to take some of your tweets using the hashtag elections360degrees. Which political parties do you think will be able to pull in other parties to form their coalitions as conversations continue around the 70 hung municipalities? When we come back, we continue with Elections360, but also Batung Party. How have they fared in these elections? And welcome back. With this being our last show, let's look back at some of the most memorable moments of Elections 360 Degrees.
So party ya rona he e bitswa ka hore Batung.
What do you promise?
Because bon le bitso la explainer hore re promise eng rona ska batho ba Batung. Kore everything re etsang ne how e bona o tlo re Batung.
Who would you say is the smartest, politically speaking?
Is that question
no, let's get Loyiso to answer that question first, and then we come into you.
I can't say anyone is the smartest except me.
I'm not sure about the fact that who's the smartest. But what I'm sure of is that we grow each other politically.
What would you say about the interest or probably lack of interest of young people when it comes to politics as somebody who's inside politics?
No, well, for me, it's not about lack of interest, and it does not reflect lack of interest.
No, I don't. I think it's very concerning, Aldrin, that a lot of young people are not registered to vote. I mean, we're doing door-to-door on a daily basis.
So young people are not registering at the rate that they should be and could be.
It's a bit late, about 15 minutes late, as we start Elections 360 following that ordeal that took place at the IEC's National Results Centre.
We are told that the electricians are here, the engineers are here, and they are working on this problem.
They know that they won't govern any city or any metro for that matter, right? But the point is, it's finding that point of relatedness.
It's scary that the community felt as though the only way they can get him out of his house and have his attention was to barricade those roads and protest for as long as they did. So yes, it's quite sad that the councillor that they'd been waiting for about a week could not even come and listen to what some of their issues are.
Alliances are possible in any election. And if you look at even the disposition of the political parties that we have here in South Africa, I don't rule out the possibility that an alliance can take place between the ANC and the EFF.
Which political party or a politician would you donate this pair to?
I'm not really sure.
Anything goes.
Maybe the DA, just to snazz it up a bit. You know?
Do you feel like John Steenhuisen could just rock it?
I think he could if he tried. Yes.
Not bullying. And Nancy's dog.
Well, some of those highlights, and just to also tell you that some of the stories that we are focusing on, for instance, the Mfuleni one, Mfuleni being one of those municipalities amongst the 70 that are hung, leading the ANC leading there by 39.71%. And then on that other story as well, with the Ndabeni brothers and cousins, the four cousins who were contesting the local government elections in Matatiele, the same ward, while that ward has been won by the ANC. When we come back, Batung Party, how did they fare? Lekota is in the building.
We're constantly choosing between things. Chicken or beef. Casual or formal. Petrol or diesel. I don't want all. I want it all.
Have it all. DSTV Premium.
More households living in extreme poverty are in desperate need of government support.
It is not just really the poorest of the poor who are.
And welcome back. Let's quickly look at some of the tweets that you've sent us, looking at these coalition agreements and the coalition conversations. Let's look at some of those tweets that have come through so far. Well, this one from Musutu Goda saying, just unfortunate we've been in the dark since after the elections, even though we are on prepaid. No TV, radio, keep us updated with all the results right here on social media, you will reach 1.4 million. Your show is oh, this is for me. All the best, Aldrin and the team. Oh, by the way, guys, so this is based on the results that we received, the number of listeners that we have on SAFM, and SAFM now being the biggest talk radio station in the country, and we've achieved 835,000 listeners so far. So thank you so much for that, and yes, we will get to that 1.5 million listenership. Sviso saying that I think EFF will pull more political parties because they are transparent. They'll work with whoever wants to work with them. And Terence saying that what happened to all the massive destructive service delivery protest coverage from all the media before the elections, media promoting their political parties, very disappointed that real ANC lives have not seen one protest being aired as services being delivered. Well, I think we have been covering those service delivery protests. And this one from Kulego saying that Uyaz, I attended one of the meetings Ward 4. People didn't want to vote for the current councillor. They voted for someone else to take over. They lodged a dispute, but the ANC still shoved down Umuntu Abangamfuni. It's a mess shame. I fell for them. Okay, and those are all the tweets that we have so far. Now, how has Batung Party fared? So remember that when we started the show about 4 weekends ago, we introduced you to Batung Party and its leader, Lekota, who's now joining us in studio. It's also gone in the rampage. If it was not the door-to-door campaign, it was you trying to convince the Democratic Alliance members why they should be voting for you. And how did that go? Good evening.
Good evening, Aldrini. Waitsi kimonane kore moyeng wa ka ke thabile. Ka hare. I'm happy.
You are. It looks quite presidential, I have to say.
Actually, after everything that has happened, Aldrini, after all the sabotage, after I have worked so hard, door-to-door, social media all over, Batung, and about vote.
So what happened to the party? Because some people were asking me, where do we find Batung Party on the ballot paper?
Aldrini, I was saying everything retlo surprise. Re Batung. Joale, who surprise Hilena? Haki fitla mole ke re ballot paper, ke re Batung dololo. Ka re Batung, wetsalang.
And what did the IEC say? What did the IEC say?
Kore motho o ne ke bua le yena wa ko IEC ha sa araba di phone tsaka. So ha ke tsebe wetsalang.
Ke sabotage.
Ke sabotage. Ba bone hore ke tlo wina mos batho ba batla go votela, but people are crazy about Batung. Ba batla go vote. No yana ha re ba fitla mole dololo.
There's an opportunity to do the next elections, which is the national and general elections. Would you take a chance on that?
Definitely. I want you to say it.
Should I say? Am I allowed to say this, guys, producers? Am I allowed to say? Okay, let's say it together. Batung Party Ieta non-song.
Yes,
thank you so much. And by the way, this is part of a skit, and thank you so much again for agreeing to do this with us and to be part of the team as well. This is our final show. Ladies and gentlemen, this is a comedian. His name is Sihle Vezi.
Yes.
And when he's not Lekota, he's Sihle Vezi and other characters as well.
Should I get out of character and just be myself?
What? Did you just see how he snapped out of it? A true politician, I tell you. A true politician. You just snapped. How did this all start for you?
Well, the Lekota character, it started when I was in tertiary. I went to VUT, and there's a place called Sharpeville. And there were a lot of gay guys there that I used to observe. So some of them acted the way Lekota acts, you know. When they see someone, they'll be like, "Ooh, mara mokgotsi bona hle, shaba moshemane o lo jwang." So, like, ngavele ngathatha Leo character, I like this. But then, bekuyinto engidlala ngayo nje over time. But then when lockdown started in 2020, people were bored. I also got bored. And then there was TikTok. I started on TikTok, and I started giving this character Lekota some life. That's why it started, and people, they loved it. And then I thought, why not Let me just continue doing it.
Nasendlin, they totally love Magauta as well.
Yeah.
But also the work that goes into it, and having to change costumes as well, because there's some of the videos where you play multiple characters.
Yes. So what I've decided to do is that I want to play all the characters alone in my skits. You know, so just to show my how different I can be as a person, because
you're a versatile politician.
Very versatile, you know. So ngiba usisi, ngiba ubhuti, ngibe yiyo yonke into ocabanga ukuthi nje ingaba khona emhlabeni.
Yeah, and where to from here for you?
Well, for now I'm just thinking ukuthi I should have a what you call it, a series, a one-man series where I play all the roles, 13 episodes. I just want to break that ground.
Wow, if you do that, you definitely have to come and tell us about it so that we can tell our audience as well, and they'll be able to, come and support as well.
Yeah, and also, ngicabanga ukuthi soon kuzoba khona ingoma yamapiano yakamagauta.
Oh, give us a tune.
Bon, kitchen, ha, klaveretsa so, ha.
Yes.
Kitchen.
Yes.
Yes. No so.
Yes. Ladies and gentlemen. Okay, here's the team. Come on, everybody. Well, there are some people, unfortunately, who have to remain behind the camera. We've made all of this possible. Thank you guys so much. Thank you, Noma. This is my boss, by the way, big boss. Cheers. Enjoy the rest of your evening, Totsins. And thank you so much for choosing Elections 360 Degrees with me, Aldrin Simpier. And Totsins.